Hey everyone, it's Caleb Williams. I'm here with my good friend Chris Kirkpatrick with Life 180, and we're going to do a video that is going to blow your mind because it's going to be on interest rates and what the big thing that I want to get across in this video is I want you to have a deeper understanding on how interest rates works, on how prices works, and a lot of times we look at things and say like, oh, the market's doing great, or oh, our house is growing up in value. Yep. And when I saw this presentation that you did for the first time, super basic, but it is so profound. It's so profound when you understand this. And this channel is all about helping you seek better wealth, and understanding this is going to make you a better investor, a better saver, a better entrepreneur, and just a better overall, more savvy person as it relates to your wealth. So, love it. You want to dive in?
Yeah, man. So let me preface this by saying that the reason that I started doing this, and I do a lot of research, I do a lot of studying, and I need to make everything make sense. And I'm a very visual person. That's why I created the Life 180 Pyramid. That's why I did this, is because I draw things out, I doodle, I sketch, and it just makes sense to me. Now, when I always kind of say that the next 40 years aren't going to look like the last 40 years. And it's a lot of, I mean, you're young, I'm young, you're young, right? But it's one of those things, like my generation, I was born in 1980, right? So we're starting at about the 1980 time frame. I'm about 40, right? At that point in time, like my generation before me, the generation before me, my parents, they did something and it was successful, right? Because they happened to live in a time frame where they could get away with it because the market conditions helped them be successful. And so a lot of times people do what they do because of what they're told worked for the people that came before them, right? And the reason that I made this and that I came up with this and went through the process had to do around real estate, had to do with investing. I'm going to use real estate as the example here, but the reason that I love this is because whenever I say the next 40 years isn't going to look like the last 40 years, that sounds like a pretty extreme, like contrarian statement, but when you look at the math behind this, you're like, you're right. It's impossible for it to look like.
And I just want people to understand what's going on.
And
so we're going to switch over
to this here. So here we go. I want to show you a little graph, and this will make sense really clearly. So we're going to go back to 1979, and I'm going to give a little history lesson on interest rates and the Federal Reserve and all that stuff. So in 1979, interest rates, I don't know if you know this or not, but we had runaway inflation. Inflation hit 13.5%. Everybody was worried. There were gas lines. There were all these different things going on. And this hero, I think he's one of the biggest heroes in this country nobody talks about, is Paul Volcker. He had the guts to hop in and say, you know what? Our federal funds rate is at about 6%. We're going to raise it to 20%. So that's where we start, right? And we went from 6% to 20% virtually overnight. Can you imagine what that would do to the economy today? Decimation.
It would decimate it,
Decimation. Don't forget, back then, the only reason we could do that is because we weren't $22 trillion in debt, right? So, like, that all has to be taken into consideration. So this is not even an option at this point in time, but it was back then.
But it's history.
It's history. So from that point forward, we went down, but, going down to 2009, we lived in this declining interest rate environment until 2009, they hit 0, right? Now, what does that mean? Okay, what is the relevance of that? When I say the next 40 isn't going to look like the last 40, the reason I say that is because we lived in this declining interest rate environment. What do declining interest rate environments do to the economy?
It increases it.
It inflates it, right? It pours money into the economy.
Inflate is a better word than increase, because it is, it's 100% true.
Yeah, it blows up a bubble. That's all it does. Because like in a real healthy economy, interest rates can stay stagnant, right? And things will just be okay, right? And you'll get natural growth, you'll get natural correction.
And the market will decide.
The market will decide what's going on. Now, that's another different philosophical conversation. But here's the bottom line. I want to actually use this as an example. So let's go back. I want to use an example of thinking about real estate, okay? And real estate prices. Now, I just showed the mortgage rates, or the federal funds rate. I guess I didn't explain that very well. 20% was a federal funds rate. That means 20%-ish, 20 to 22% was like a mortgage rate. Okay.
I can't imagine.
Can you? I mean, it's insane. So I want you to think about this. A lot of people back then, everybody goes. So for instance, I clicked on the wrong button. Everybody thinks real estate's a great investment. I'm not saying real estate's not a great investment. I love real estate. We invest in real estate. Understanding what you're investing in real estate for is a completely different thing, right? Not there's been so many people that have used their houses as banks. So many people that have just assumed that a certain appreciation of the house is to be baked into the concept of owning a house. Nothing could be further from the truth.
A common myth that we say is a house is always appreciate, and you're gonna explain why that was the case, but may not be the case going forward.
And I'm going to explain. So your parents may think that, right? Your grandparents may think that, depending on how old you are, right? And that's their reality, because that's all they ever knew, right? And I'm about to show you why. Because when they bought their first house, they probably paid, I'm going to actually guess 80,000, but we're going to just use 100,000 as an example. And they paid 20, I'm going to use 20%. It was probably 22%, but we're going to use 20%, okay? So back then, by the way, that means for a $100,000 house, they were paying $1,600 a month, $1,671 a month in monthly payments. That's insanity, right?
That's huge.
So think about that. No wonder everybody thinks you got to pay your house off fast, right? Like that's a crazy amount of money. That's taking you're paying $601,000 for a $100,000 house. Wow. Okay, so when you look at that, it just is. It's like you could see why. Now, what happens? I want to challenge you and ask you a question here, and I want you to kind of role play with it. When you buy a house, is that value of the house the $100,000, or is it the $1,671 a month?
In another way to say that is most people are buying a house on what they can afford the payment.
Right. Because if the house would be worth $100,000 if people were paying cash for a house, well, let's face it, nobody does that. Right. A very small percentage of people do that. The monthly payment is what the house is worth. Right. So here's what happens. That's 2,000. So imagine you can afford 1,671. I'm just going to use this calculator to work with me here. 1,671 is what you can afford. Right. So let's go to 19% interest. Oh, 1,589 is the monthly payment. Let's go to 110.
I see.
Oh, 110. It's pretty close. 105, we'll say. You get the point.
There you
go. So it went up 5%.
Yeah.
The housing market went up 5% just because of a 1% reduction in interest rates.
Do you guys get that? Like 1%, the house increased, or interest rates decreased.
Yes. So
that's powerful, man. Because why do houses? Okay, let me ask you this: why is your house increasing? Like, why is it just magically going up in value? No one. I mean, why is the market increasing? This is the same reason why the stock market had such a great run, and you have to ask the question why. Like, why is that the case?
Yep, exactly. So now you get that one simple principle that a 1% reduction in interest rate led, in this simple example, to a 5% increase in what people could afford.
Yes.
And naturally, what people can afford, the market's going to charge it, right? It's going to make up for it, right? Supply demand. So I want to use this example and move it down to here. 2020, where we are right now, we got 4% interest rates. Okay, so for every $100,000, you're looking at $477, not $1,671. So it's a fraction of the price, right? So think about this. So let's say you can afford $1,671. What's it going to take to get back there?
Yeah, let's start with 500,000. See where that is. Okay, a little bit on the high end.
Okay, I'm going to do something else too. Let's just do 400. Oh, no, 375. And then watch this. Okay,
it's
close enough.
Yeah.
So we're at 375. So basically, you didn't really make it, the house didn't really go up that much.
Right.
The market forced the price up because people can still afford. But I'm going to challenge you and say that it's worse than that. Because inflation is taken into account. I don't know about you.
How would you define inflation?
Inflation is the erosion of the value of the dollar.
Yeah.
So basically, here's what it looks like. If you could afford, and if you're old enough to know this, or to experience this, you know that if you were alive in 1980 making $1,600 payments on a mortgage, $1,600 a month back then was a heck of a lot harder to make in a payment than it is today.
Yep.
Right? So my guess, and just by the nature of inflation, 40 years, a $1,600 payment back then is like a $3,500 a month payment right now.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So really, if you take inflation into account, and if you take the reduction of the interest rates into account, to be on par, that $100,000 house really should be about a $3,500 a month payment, right? And so I would say that if your house isn't worth $3,500 a month in a payment, which is about $600,000, no,
Because you're including inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So between interest rates and inflation.
So if you bought a house in 1980, if that house isn't worth $750,000 today,
It really didn't appreciate.
you didn't make any money.
It's-
Your money,
yeah, that's
it was
interesting.
not the best
interesting.
place for you to put your money
Yeah.
and store it, right?
That's interesting.
Not only that, here's the other thing I'm going to throw at you. If you bought that house in 1980, I guarantee you put probably 30 or 40 or 50 or more than that $1,000 into upgrading it.
Yeah.
New carpets,
The
new counters.
depreciation is a real thing.
Yeah, depreciation is a real thing. So it's really important to understand, right? So like we talk about this, right? Like the house is only worth what people pay for it monthly. It's not worth that number. So when I say the next 40 years are not going to look like the last 40, it's because of this. We live in this environment where interest rates have been going down.
And same thing, we can look at the last 40 years as it relates to the stock market.
100%. Because don't forget, we're talking about real estate here,
Yep.
right? In this example. But when we talk about money going into stocks, when we talk about the Dow and the S&P and everything going up over that time frame, it's the same thing. When reduction in interest rates, that puts more money into the economy, and a portion of that gets put into investments, rightfully so.
Totally.
And so it drives it into these markets, right?
Yep.
Now the problem is, in 2009, I don't know if you know this, but 2009 we hit zero. Federal funds rate went to zero. In 2011, it got worse because we hit what we call quantitative easing, where the government printed $4 trillion and just pumped it into the economy. So rather than going into negative interest rates, which would send the economic world on fire and just be such a negative pub, they just decided to not secretly, but kind of, quietly print money and just pump it into the system to keep it going, right?
Yeah.
And so we had 0% interest rates for 7 years. Never happened before. Never had they in 55 years been below 0.75%, but then they hit zero and they stayed there for 7 years. And when they hit 0.75% before, it was like during World War II, and it stayed there for like 18 months. Right? So we're talking 7 years of zero. And they bumped it up to 0.75%, and the market took a dive for like 15%. And they go, whoa, let's back this off. You know what I mean? So, but what's going on now? So when I say, like, what worked for your parents isn't going to work for you, it's not just some emotional statement, right? It's like this is based in fact. And if your older generation or the people that you're taking advice from and your respect and all these things are saying that you really should do this, and you're kind of feeling like it doesn't really feel right for me, but you don't want to fight with them, and you're like, you feel kind of pressured into it, and it's like what everybody does, so you just do it. This is why I say, like, really think about it, because I know they love you, they're giving you the advice, it worked for them, but it's because they lived in the perfect time for it. And we don't, because now we're here and interest rates either have to stay stagnant, or they have to go up, right? We're at zero, folks. They can't go any lower, right? They have to go up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And taxes are gonna, like, all these different things. Like, we're $22 trillion in debt as a country. This has to happen. That's why I'm so passionate. That's why Caleb's so passionate about making sure people structure their lives financially properly. Like, and using the And Asset program, reading his book, doing that, I'm telling you. Awesome.
I love this, man. This. I hope this made a lot of sense. And essentially, we're super passionate about helping people understand the why behind this. And so if you want to learn more information, I wrote a book that I think is pretty good. I want you to read it. I also want you to know that our team is here to help you really understand this, understand how this translates into your life, and you can find out more information down in the links below. Chris, thank you so much for
you got it,
passionately sharing this, and there's not a lot of people talking about this, but I think if we understand some of these basics, we can then look at the stock market, we can look at real estate, we can look at other things and ask the question why. And when we get down to the deeper root issue, a lot of times we're praising the wrong things.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thanks,
All
brother.
right, go subscribe. Make sure we're gonna be shooting a lot more videos. So thank you for watching, and there'll be more to come.
You got it. Thanks, guys.